Jerusalem is in the middle of Israel. Most of the stones in central Israel are made up of sandstone, dolostone, or mudstone. Those are all stones from the Cambrian period. The Cambrian period sounds a little bit like something from the age of King Arthur, but it's actually a geological term designating the first stage of the Paleozoic era. The Cambrian period lasted 55 million years, so it's hard to pinpoint the exact age of the stones undergirding the parade in this morning's story. But they could be as old as 541 million years, or they could be as young as 490 million years, which is also old, right? We think we're old, celebrating 175 years of being a church, but you could celebrate nearly 3,175th anniversaries over the course of a dolostone rock's formation until the moment of this first century parade. The first minute of this sermon comes to you courtesy of Wikipedia and the calculator on my iPhone. I saw some of your eyes glaze over a little bit when we started doing calculations about how old those rocks are, and you should probably check my math and my geology too. But even if I calculated incorrectly, I think the point stands. These stones are ancient. 500 million years. Fernando Diaz, our building engineer here at St. Paul's, was out with a cold for 2 days last week. He's worked at the church for 6.5 years, and Monday was the first time he called in sick. That's impressive. Day after day after day after day, you show up and you do your job. Those stones beneath the Pharisees' feet have been doing their job for 500 million years. What's their job? It's to hold the frame. It's to hold things steady. They've been doing that. They've been rock solid ground for every step of evolution to wiggle or walk across. Eventually they become a road. These rocks deserve an attendance award. More than that, a performance award. If you think about it, most of the rocks you've ever known have done their job quite well, right? Come on, right? A rock, what's it have to do? It has to be a rock. It's quite simple. Most donkeys also do their job pretty well. Donkeys exist to work. They might be the least glamorous animal in the animal kingdom. In a poem he wrote for Palm Sunday, G.K. Chesterton says, "A donkey has ears like errant wings, the devil's parody of all four-footed things." I have this memory of a donkey that feels like a dream, and it feels more like a dream with every passing year, but I know that it happened. 15 years ago, when we lived up in the Roscoe Village neighborhood, doorbell at the parsonage rang. I went to open it. I thought it might be somebody looking for money. That often happened in that parsonage. There was a soup kitchen right next door in the basement. But instead it was this young kid who looked like he probably just stepped off a farm. And down at the bottom of the porch, he had a donkey. It was just sitting there, or standing, but just no leash or anything. And the donkey stood there, and he told me, "I can take a photograph of one of your kids on the back of this donkey with a cowboy hat on for $10. It's an absolutely strange-looking animal, the donkey. But it didn't look sad that day, just doing its job. That kid could have packed 500 pounds on the back of that donkey and rode it through a mountain pass, or put a saddle on it so that dozens of Chicago children could play cowboy. To the donkey, no difference, really, just doing my job. Here's the poem. When fishes flew and forests walked, and figs grew upon thorn, some moment when the moon was blood, then surely I was born. With monstrous head and sickening cry, and ears like errant wings, the devil's walking parody of all four-footed things, the tattered outlaw of the earth, of ancient crooked will, starve, scourge, deride me, donkey, I am dumb. I keep my secret still. Fools. For I also had my hour, one far fierce hour and sweet. There was a shout about my ears and palms beneath my feet. There was a shout. Hosanna! Who shouted? The donkey did not shout, and the stones didn't shout. The donkey and the stones just did their jobs. The stones made a sturdy road for the donkey to ride upon, and the donkey made a sturdy ride to carry Jesus. More than that, the donkey signified, this is a different kind of king. No chariot led by a team of gleaming steeds. This king rides the ugliest animal, a half horse, suitable for city children who don't know the difference between a half horse and a real horse. The donkey did its job quite well. The world, creation, it might not have felt this way this morning when you woke up and saw the snow, but creation is an absolute gift from God. God can exist without the world, right? God could exist without the world, but the world could not exist without God and cannot exist without God. Karl Barth says, the point of creation, the reason the world exists, is salvation. That God made the world so that Christ could come to us. That God made the world because the Son of God, the eternal Logos, didn't want to be an angel. He wanted to be a person. The whole cosmos was precisely created, he says, that in this event, the one we're about to begin, the one we just began, in this event, Holy Week, cross, resurrection, that humanity might become beloved by the grace of God. That's the reason the world exists, that we might become beloved by the grace of God. It's an audacious claim, but if you read the Bible carefully, you can't help but begin to think that he's probably right. He goes on to say then that creation, stones, trees, sky, stars, donkeys, every other aspect of it, these things are made to be both our partners in the story, but also simply the stage that salvation plays out upon. That's its job. Hold the frame, be the stage. And the stage has been waiting for the show to start forever. 500 million years. That's how long those rocks have been waiting. Now, some of the people in the crowd waiting for Jesus to ride into Jerusalem, they feel like they've been waiting for God 500 million years. And some of us might feel the exact same way. There are sick people in that crowd, waving palms. They've lived with disease for decades. And there are grieving people in that parade, waving palms. People whose hearts just refuse to become whole again, even though their spouse died 20 years ago. And there are confused people who wonder what the point of their own lives might be. And there are poor people waving palms, hollering Hosanna, people who get anxious in the grocery store line because their cash card might be rejected. It happened just last month. And even if it doesn't get rejected, that awful tone the chip reader makes, it sounds like you hit a whammy again and you flinch. And you've been waiting forever to get your head above water. So when Jesus finally rides into our lives and we realize that the whole world, including ourselves, is about to be made whole again, what do? We go a little nuts. Hosanna! You're waving palms. This is crazy a little bit. This is a strange thing to do. These palms come in a giant cardboard box that's been in the refrigerator downstairs in the church kitchen for about 3 weeks. It reminded me of my restaurant days. I opened it and I looked at it and I thought, is that like 200 chickens or a pig in that box? What is going on? It's a box full of palms. You're waving them. I hope you wave them today. This whole thing is a little strange. We go a little nuts when Jesus rides into our lives. We can't help but lose it a little bit. God is with us. But some people don't like it. It isn't that Christ's disciples are uncouth or too wild. It's just really, what's the big deal? A country teacher on a donkey come to see the big city. Calm down. The Pharisees feel like I felt years ago when I was dumb enough to walk our dog through the intersection of Halligan's and John Barleycorn on St. Patrick's Day. Right? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody's drunk. Calm down. It's not like World War II just ended, guys. Why is everybody drunk on some random faux holiday? It's just a Saturday in March. Teacher, get your disciples under control. In 1979, the town that I lived in with my parents, I was 9 years old, and my sisters, this town way up in northern Michigan on Lake Huron, the northern part of the Lower Peninsula, Milltown, kind of a donkey of a town, actually. The state of Michigan decided to give our school district an arts grant so that the children from this Lake Huron Milltown could learn to appreciate the theater. That shows you this was a long time ago. Nobody's writing those grants right now. So the first time this happened, every elementary school child in this city, we all assembled in the high school auditorium, and there was some third-rate version of a Detroit ripoff of Second City there. So they were smart. They started off with comedy. And this guy stepped out onto the stage, and I swear I remember this. You could see on his face that he thought he was too good for this moment. You could see it. And he looked out at us, these grubby little kids, and he sneered kind of patronizingly, and this was his first line: "Don't applaud, just throw money." Well, the kids of Alpena, Michigan did just that, and they threw hard. It was a torrent of coins that started flying at this guy. The closest thing to a riot I have ever seen in my life. The high school principal came out and just absolutely bellowed at all of us. We got herded back onto the bus, and the show never happened. We all went back to grade school. That incident should have convinced me to stay away from the theater, but when that same grant paid for a young director to put a show together at Bingham Elementary, I just had to be in it, right? Whatever is wrong with me that has me up here in a tailored robe on a platform in front of all of you this morning was wrong with me when I was in the 5th grade. So the play told the real history of St. Valentine, which I don't remember at all. But I do remember my first line. I was St. Valentine. That's almost the line I was supposed to say. I was sitting on the stage, the curtain opened, my parents in the front row, all my classmates there. I'm beginning to wonder if this was a terrible mistake, and I'm supposed to stand up and say, "I am St. Valentine." So the big show, the heat of the spotlight, I'm sitting there on the stage. It was doing its job. I could not remember who I was. Totally forgot the line. So I stood there. And behind me, my friend Shane Clark was dressed as a tree. And next to him, our classmate John Leonard was playing a papier-mâché rock, a boulder. The moment stretched out forever. And then Shane and John spoke at the exact same time, the loudest whisper you have ever heard. "I am St. Valentine!" Can a tree shout Hosanna? Perhaps. Walk through a grove of trembling aspen deep in the woods on a bright summer day, and you might hear it, Hosanna. I think I have. Can a rock shout out with joy? Jesus turns to his critics on Palm Sunday and he says, listen, if the actors don't say their lines, the stage will. If the people in this parade won't shout for joy, the road will. If my friends who love me and come to the church in the middle of an April snowfall on the second day of spring break should fall silent because the world around them wants to say, calm down, then the stones themselves will shout out for them. How old do you think this limestone is? It's been waiting 500 million years. Hosanna! But the stones don't have to shout. In fact, people start hollering before they even see Jesus, the way that a ripple of anticipation builds at the Pride Parade, moves through the crowd when a really good float is on its way. They start shouting before they even see him. The rumors have been flying for weeks. The Messiah is on his way for a final showdown with the powers that be. Christ is about to arrive and show his strength, flex, overthrow Rome, tear the yoke of oppression off his people's backs, save them finally. Suddenly a shout goes up. There he is. He's riding toward them. And now it feels like everything is possible. Everything. Name your deepest wish. The thing you can't have, that your body won't let you have, that the economy won't let you have, that your circumstances won't let you have. Name it. It's about to happen. And the crowd builds and people start to shout. He's going to knock down prison walls. He's going to walk onto the ICU of every hospital, healing every last sick body. He's going to step into the psych wards and soothe our troubled minds. The crowd races out to meet him at the city's edge, and they shout in one loud voice, Hosanna! And they're totally unaware that the parade route ends on the cross. And they're blind to the obvious significance of the fact that he's riding on a donkey, not a stallion. And they're dumb to the knowledge that by the end of the week their proud cries are going to become crucify, crucify. Peter keeps on shouting at the top of his lungs, donkey reins in one hand, palm branch in the other, all the way gone, delirious and full of love. Blessed is the King. A parade is probably the last thing on Jesus' mind. But here they are, this crowd of shouting thousands, and he smiles at them. And he remains full of love for these hopeful women and men. And he delights in their delight. He really hears them. And their gladness makes him glad. This is what the whole earth has been waiting for. And he knows it. What would happen if he shut them up? Jumped from Sunday straight into Good Friday? Well, then the stones would shout. Every rock would become a geode, and every geode would reverse its skin to shine and sing Hosanna. And that sounds good, right? Streets that look like they're paved with gold, miraculous. Well, you don't have to wait, because it sounds even better to shout the word yourself, to feel that joy right now. It's what we were made for. God wrote the script, and it's perfect. Hosanna.